Hi guys, welcome back to Gráinne's Home and Kitchen. Thanks for joining me. Guys, I know my videos are very hit and miss, but actually I wanted to make this video. Believe it or not, this was the very first recipe I did on my channel 5 years ago. Can you believe that? 5 years ago. And it never really got the exposure that it should have got. It's probably one of the most delightful desserts. If you're not familiar with Pavlova, it's a meringue dessert. So basically the outside is nice crunchy meringue, but the inside is soft. And then you top it with fresh cream and the fruit of your choice. It's absolutely delightful, and it's actually quite light. Like, it's not a dessert that you would feel really stuffed after. You know, sometimes you might have a chocolate cake or something and you're just like, oh, this is just, it just goes down so easy and it's really beautiful. This is also a great dessert if you're on a gluten-free diet, if you're celiac, because there's no flour in it. And it's actually so simple. People think this is such a complicated dessert. It's absolutely not. It's so simple. So I thought, let's make it again, and hopefully it will get the views that it deserves. It did have, it was funny this morning, I went in and I deleted it because actually it was quite funny when you see yourself making your very first videos. But anyway, it did have 888 views. Isn't that hilarious? 888. So I just deleted it and I thought, let's start again. So what's the first thing you're going to do? Well, you're going to turn your oven on. In Ireland, you're going to turn it to 130 degrees Celsius. If you're living in a country that uses Fahrenheit, like here in Canada, you're going to turn it to 250 degrees Fahrenheit, and you're going to let your oven heat. Next, you're going to get a mixer. You don't need to have a big mixer like this. You can use a hand mixer. Before I bought my KitchenAid, I used a hand mixer. You might not get quite the same volume on your eggs, but it will still be delightful. There will be no issues. For years and years, before I could afford this mixer, I just used a hand mixer. So don't let that put you off. If you're somebody who's good at whisking eggs by hand, go for it. I wouldn't be able to do it, but if you can do it, go for it. Okay, so I'm going to bring the camera in now and I'm going to show you how to make this delightful dessert. You're going to need a pan. I'm going to use a round pan today, but you can use a square or a rectangular. Probably traditionally it would be made round, but I've made it, if I'm making a large one and I'm like doubling my ingredients, I would make it on a long rectangular pan. So whatever pan you have is perfectly fine. You're going to be freehanding the shape on this anyway. In my recipe, I use 5 large eggs. Ideally, guys, let them become room temperature. These aren't room temperature and it will still work out of the fridge, but ideally they say you should let them come to room temperature. Just going to put them apart. Not that it's going to make any difference. Why did I don't know why I just moved all these eggs around, guys, but ideally it should be room temperature, but I sometimes make this in a hurry and I make it straight out of the fridge. So 5 eggs. We're going to just use the whites of the eggs. We're going to use sugar. So it's better in Canada, the sugar is very finely grained. It's a finer grain than in Ireland. So if you want to, you could use a caster sugar in Ireland. And I use custard powder. You don't have to use custard powder. You can use cornstarch and vanilla. But basically custard powder is cornstarch with vanilla. And then you're also going to need some vinegar. Vinegar basically stabilizes the eggs. I'm going to do a little experiment today. I bought this at Dollarama and it's for taking the yolk out of the white. And I'll also show you how just to do it when you're, you know, passing from shell to shell, which I'm sure most of you know how to do anyway, but I thought we'd give this a try. Okay, so let's see how this will work. So what you do, I believe, is you squeeze it, you put it on top of your yolk, and then you release. Oh! Okay, did I lose some of the white? That's brilliant. Oops. Just be careful that the yolk doesn't break. Okay, so there is one. Let's pop the yolk back out there. That's pretty good. Oh, did I show you what I did there? Sorry, I was out of frame, so I just popped the yolk in there. I like that. Okay, so that's one. Put that into your bowl, because you've done that successfully. Now, if you don't have this gadget, people have used plastic bottles for this as well. I've seen some little hacks. I actually just broke the yolk with that one. Let me just actually take the, I don't need to put the, so I'm just going to try that again. sometimes I find the shells are very thin compared to what they used to be, and sometimes it's harder to do this. So basically you're just going to pass the yolk from shell to shell. Okay, and there's no yolk in that, and then I just pop my yolk in here. So I think I'm going to use this. I kind of like this. This is a good little gadget. So let's pop it in. Look at how thin the shells are, so thin nowadays. So again, we're going to squeeze it, put it on top of the yolk, and oh god, that's just so cool. Oh, I think I got everything out that time. That was pretty good. I don't know if you can see in there. It doesn't look like there's any white in there. So we'll pop that in there. That is one nifty little gadget. So if you've watched me bake before, you'll know I sometimes just use a mug to measure, but I got these new measuring cups, so I thought, let's just use this. So I will put the weight ingredients in the description for those of you who don't like to use cups. So we use a cup of sugar. So can you see how finely ground the sugar is? So it is. And to this then, we are going to add a teaspoon of custard powder, or remember, a teaspoon of cornstarch, and you can add a teaspoon of vanilla. Okay, so a teaspoon of cornstarch, and make it level. So a level teaspoon of cornstarch or custard powder. And then we'll add our vinegar later. So now we're going to beat our eggs. I'll drop down my whisk, and then I'm going to turn this on high, and then I will stop it and I will add some of our sugar. So I whisked that for I'd say about a minute, and you can see the soft peaks. Let me make sure I can zoom in with me. So you can see there's soft peaks there. Just take a spoon and mix your cornstarch through your sugar. And now we're going to add half the sugar. And we can add our teaspoon of vinegar. Okay. I should mention, if you're using cornstarch and vanilla, you can also add your vanilla at this time. Okay, so I mixed that for about 40 seconds, and now I'm going to add the rest of my sugar, and we're going to give it a good mix. Okay, so I whisked that for maybe about another 2 minutes, and now if you have a look at the consistency, it is very smooth and almost silky and shiny, and you can see how solid it is. So this is very important because, as I say, this is you're going to freehand the shape of this dessert. So let's get off. Waste not, want not. I don't know if you noticed in the background, I washed my 2 spatulas very well with hot water and washing up liquid, or dish soap as you say here, and just to make sure that there was absolutely no grease on them. Okay, so now we're going to take this off. So I take a little piece of the meringue, and if you just tip it on your pan underneath, and it will kind of hold together the parchment paper. Now, or the parchment or greaseproof paper. So my pans are so old, but you know what? They're such good pans that I can't throw them out. And I know they look awful, but they are clean, I promise. Just everything gets baked on them. Okay. Now we're going to take out our mixture, and you're going to see how firm this is. When I say firm, I don't, you know, it's obviously it's very light, but it's holding its shape. Okay. So So now you're just going to gently, you don't want to deflate it, so just gently push it down and try and make a round shape, or if you're using a square tin, you can make a square shape. You can make a wonky shape, you can make whatever shape you want. Okay, so I'm going to try and make a round shape to the best of my ability. And then I also try and make a little wall up the middle, or up the middle, along the outside. So, but don't have it too thin in the middle, but just a very slight little lip at the edges, just basically to, you know, have to hold your cream when you put your whipped cream into this. Okay. Now this is where a second spatula is handy. Or you could use a knife actually, you don't even need two spatulas. I sometimes use a knife to do this. Okay, so you can see it's not perfect. It doesn't need to be perfect because it tastes perfect. Something I noticed in my original video, we had Ollie, my big black old dog, and both he and Leroy were standing in the background, and we have lost Ollie. So now we have Penny for our sins. We adore Penny, but she's a little vociferous, to say the least. She likes to bark and make a lot of noise. So anyway, there is the Pavlova ready to go in the oven. Now, the secret with Pavlova is you cook it at a very low temperature, which you'll notice when I said 130 degrees Celsius and 250 Fahrenheit. And you cook it for 1 hour with the oven on, and then you turn the oven off and you just leave it in there. If you're in a hurry, you need to leave it for a minimum of 1 more hour. Sometimes I make this before I go to bed at night, and I set the timer in my oven to go off. And you can leave it in the oven overnight and it's absolutely perfect. But if you are on a time crunch, 1 hour with the oven on, 1 hour with the oven off, and it will be perfect. So just pop it on the middle shelf and set your timer. Okay, I'm back. So it was in the oven for 1 hour with the oven on and for 1 hour with the oven turned off. So you can see the base of the Pavlova there. It's pretty gorgeous looking, isn't it? And I'm going to take it now to my daughter's house because we're actually going there for dinner, and I'll whip the cream there and I'll dress the Pavlova there, but I'll bring my camera so you can see it. So I prepared some strawberries. I just washed and chopped them. I also bought some blueberries. So you can put any fruit you want on here. Traditionally, because it's an Australian, I don't know if I told you that, it's an Australian dessert, they quite often put kiwi on it. And I've had it with kiwi, it's delightful. But today we're going to use strawberries and blueberries. So I have a plate here and I'm just going to remove it from the hot pan. I'm going to put it on the plate and head up now to my daughter's house. Okay, so I'm about to dress the Pavlova. So I whipped some cream. So there's about 1 cup of cream in here with about 1/2 teaspoon of sugar, and I whipped it. And if you can zoom in there, I have my old cameraman back again. So if you can zoom in there, Kieran, and now I'm literally just going to pop the cream on top. We're going to, let me see, can I get it all out? Actually, it's 250 ml of cream. I don't know if that's a cup. I think it is a cup though. Okay, so then just spread out your cream. And we're going to take our strawberries. And I just spread them out. I don't lay them out. If you want to lay them in a nice pattern, I just plopped a big lump of strawberry there. If you want to lay them out in a nice pattern, you can do that. I don't bother. I just kind of throw them on top. And I'm also going to add some blueberries. I just washed these blueberries and I will sprinkle them over the top. Whoops. And then I always add a little bit of chocolate, but that's optional. You don't have to do that. So what I did was I melted some milk chocolate chips here, and then I just drizzle it over the fruit. I probably didn't melt it quite enough, but oops. So I'm going to cut a piece in a moment and I'll come back to you and we will taste it. So now I have to have a second taste test because the the first one didn't go very well. It's so delicious, guys. It's so delicious. You have to try this recipe. I have food in my mouth. It's so delicious. You have to try this recipe. It's so simple and so rewarding. So guys, thank you so much for joining me. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to give me a thumbs up. If you have any questions or comments, don't forget to ask below. Thank you so much for joining me today.